I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Marty Smith. Marty, I've got a lot that I want to get to with you, but you're here today with GameChange, which is a competitive giving tool specifically for college athletes. It just launched this past Saturday. Tell everyone why you wanted to get involved with this and why this is unique.
First of all, Connor, thank you for your time, brother. I'm grateful to get to spend this time with you. And yes, I'm grateful to partner with Game Change. And the reason is in this NIL era, a lot of fans are trying to figure out, okay, how can we give to our university so they remain competitive? Not all of us have millions of dollars to get our names on buildings. And Game Change is a way to do it. You just go to GoGameChange.com. You input your credit or debit card of choice, choose your team, and then I'm sure you've been to the grocery store and they ask you, do you want to round up? A lot of
Yep.
different charities are a benefit from those roundup programs. That's exactly what this is, only the money goes directly to your chosen athletic department. It goes right to the athletic department, and then the athletic department chooses how that money is distributed within the department. And it is a tax write-off. It is a charitable donation to your university of choice. And I just think it's so cool. I'm grateful to partner with them. And as somebody who, look, the schools that you and I spend a lot of time around in the SEC, most of them are doing okay financially. Basically, they have television revenue, massive television revenue coming into the athletic departments. But I went to Radford University. All right, very low Division I Big South Conference, and I wonder. I went to the Big South Conference tournament last year, and I'm like, how are we going to compete? How are we going to stay competitive and keep athletes in the door? Because NIL has made its way all the way into D2 for sure. I know that. And so this is just a unique way where any fan can input their credit card or debit card into gogamechange.com, choose your school, and every single purchase with that specific card is directly going to that university's athletic department. I think it's a really cool initiative. And it's like, okay, do I want to partner with them? And then the more I learned about it, I was like, absolutely. I just think it's cool.
Yeah, it's different than just giving to a collective, so to speak. There's
Right.
there's different tentacles to it, and the way that it works universally, I think, is something that's really easy to get on board with, and it's cool to see the innovations of NIL. As much as everyone wants to talk about why it's hurting sports, this is something that can greatly benefit. And for a school like yours, like Radford, I mean,
I'm telling you, it's
that's
I
awesome.
was worried, man, as I watched the Big South Conference tournament last year. I walk into High Point University has a brand new arena, Cubane Arena. It is a gorgeous arena, 6 figures plus. They have a beautiful hotel attached to it, all that. And I'm sitting there looking around, going, "All right, this is High Point University. This is in the Big South Conference. This is what we're competing against at Radford University. We got to do something, and we got to do it now." And as I started to really process what Game Change is, I went, okay, this is a way for alumni all over the place to have a charitable opportunity that goes to the athletic department. And then they choose where the money's going. It might go to women's tennis. It might go to basketball. It might go to baseball, softball, whatever, volleyball. We don't, that's up to them. That's their discretion. But ultimately, it is great that the money goes directly to the athletic department. And again, a lot of people want write offs.
Very true. Very, very true. So the last time you were on, I really appreciated getting to chat about our late fathers and what that
Mm-hmm.
grieving process was like and kind of, the different things that you go through. And your conversation with Lane Kiffin about his late dad, Monty, and the timing of when you had it, obviously I mean, I think it was like a week after the death of his father. That conversation made the rounds. Everyone go watch it if you haven't. The 7 minute clip that you posted, I'm sure was just like a fraction of a much longer conversation with Lane about his dad. But you start by asking him about the influence that his dad had on him. And with it's so removed, like Lane is basically says, like, I don't really want to go there. I'm going to get too emotional. You could tell he's still trying to like process everything. But Lane went there. Take us behind the scenes with all that, because if you had just chimed in after Lane had said, I don't really want to go there, and said, like, all right, let's talk about your portal editions or something, you never really see that conversation happen.
It was a very interesting moment, to be honest with you, Connor, because I having lost my dad, to your point, and knowing his overwhelming influence in my journey and who I am as a person, both good and bad. I I know that dynamic really well, and I know that 16 years after losing him, I still learn about him every day and learn about how he shaped my perspectives and how my personality traits in certain ways are a direct derivative of his and my mom's too, but certainly my dad's influence. And so for somebody like Lane, who is such a dynamic personality, hilarious on social media, who's evolved so much himself and made decisions in his personal life and in that affected his professional life. First and foremost, the decision to get sober a few years ago, along with his quarterback Matt Corral and what that meant for them as people. I chronicled that in pretty great depth in my book Sideline CEO, and the mental clarity and the bond that it gave those two. What a decision on Lane's part. And and having met his dad a couple times, I didn't know Monty well, but I knew his grace. And so I just wanted to know Lane's perspective on it. And it was very fresh. His father had just passed when we sat with him in July in Dallas. And to see his facial expression, to see his body language and his energy, that he said, I'm not capable of doing that right now because I can't maintain my emotional composure. And then I was, of course, totally, okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to pry. Nothing else was said. He just started talking. And as he started talking and saying, I'm not 10% of the man that my father was, I never will be. And then to see him detail the influence that Monty had on so many men and women, support staff, training staff, janitorial staff, or custodial staff, all the way up to the top presidents, chancellors. And to have that kind of grace and that kind of influence is the greatest endorsement that you can have and the greatest influence you can have. And to see Lane's vulnerability in that moment was something I've never experienced. And I've had wonderful personal moments, conversations with Lane off camera, away, no tape recorders, no nothing. And that was as moving and as impactful for me as any conversation I've ever had. And I'm so grateful to him because I texted him that night and I said, you don't know what you just did. You don't know the influence that your vulnerability is going to have on millions of people. And I think now he probably does, now that it's aired. The conversation was 20 something minutes in total. You guys saw 7, and all 20 of those were just beyond anything I've seen from him. And so full of gratitude for him. So is Ryan McGee, my brother, my co-host, who also was involved and immersed in that energy. We spend a lot of time, brother. You guys, I said to you before we came on, I love what you guys do at Saturday Down South. I love the content. I love the immersion. You know that we spend a lot of time talking about the dynamics on a day-to-day basis. We don't spend a lot of time talking about the broader scope of what these coaching staffs and these athletic departments are trying to do for young people. And that's genuinely prepare them for life and grow them as individuals. And it's obvious to me that Lane is in a season of his life where that matters the most. Of course, winning matters. It's you're either employed or you ain't, and winning is the why and the how. And he's doing a very good job at that too. But his relationships with Matt Corral, with Jackson Dart, that relationship with Matt Corral is why Jackson chose Ole Miss. He told me that himself. And so it was just a really fulfilling moment for me. Sorry for rambling forever and on and on and on.
No, that was the exact answer I hoped you would provide because I think we all get in those settings at media days, and I've seen the behind the scenes, even with you guys, like with your set specifically, and you have a very specific window with these head coaches. I'm pretty sure Lane was off his schedule for the rest of the day as a direct result of that. Like he went on Feinbaum late and stuff like that. But that speaks to him wanting to be vulnerable in that moment and him wanting to be able to share that with people who very clearly were there to listen to it. And at different points in Lane's career, I think we all questioned whether or not he had emotional maturity. And I think it's been a fair criticism of who he's been. And so now one of the burning questions in all of college football this year for me is Lane ready for all of this? Because it's the preseason expectations that are, like 2012 USC, maybe not quite that same level because it's not the number one team in the country, but dealing with the death of your father and this team that is ready to take this next step in this new era of the sport that you've embraced. Like, is he ready for all of this? And that is such a fascinating question. Do you feel like you have a better perspective and feel like you have an answer to that question? Because obviously we won't know until we see it, but seeing what you've seen from him, do you feel like he's now ready to conquer this in a way that he wasn't maybe as recently as like 2 or 3 years ago?
Absolutely. In terms of where he was a couple years ago compared to where he is now, it's been quite an evolution as a person. He's learned to go inward. He's started to be very analytical in his spiritual self. And I'm in a season of my life where I'm doing the same thing. So it's very relatable to me. There's so much outside noise. There's so many inputs coming at us all the time, and we can let those inputs define us as people. Or we can take the time to go inward, really self-analyze, because we can't lie to ourselves. We can put on fronts for everybody out there. But when we're in the mirror, when we're looking at, one of the greatest, you're a country music guy, one of the greatest, maybe the greatest, this is a hell of a statement, but maybe the greatest stanza of any song that I have ever heard is, the truth about a mirror is that a damned old mirror don't really tell the whole truth. It don't show what's deep inside or read between the lines, and it's really no reflection of my youth. That's from Troubadour by George
George
Strait.
Strait.
And you listen to what that says and you go, holy cow, like I can be something out here. I try very hard in my life, Connor. I don't always succeed. I try to be the same guy all the time, but I'm not. I want to be. I want my children to know the same guy that they see on the TV in their daily walk. I want to influence them at people that are watching TV the same way I do my children. But guess what? You can't, because not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to appreciate who that person is. But if it's your authentic self, that energy that you're putting out, you have to be okay with whatever comes back because it's real. And I believe that's where Lane Kiffin is. He is putting this version of self out there that is unencumbered. Like he went from us to your point. He goes from having that conversation with with Ryan and me to Feinbaum, and he's busting Feinbaum's ass.
Yeah.
And I love that versatility because it's real. And so I would venture to say that he's as empowered personally as he's ever been. And he also has a ton of talent if you don't have talent, but that dude's got a lot of talent, man. He's obviously tweaked that Quinshon Judkins went to Ohio State. Like he's tweaked. You can see it in his tweets, whatever they're called, X's. What the hell do we call them now, bro?
Call them tweets.
I'm a tweet. I'm old. It's a tweet.
Yeah.
So you can tell that he is poking the bear that he chose to go there. But he too has a lot of players from the portal and good ones. So yeah, there's a lot of expectation and there should be. And I do believe he's equipped.
Let's talk about another piece that you did. This is going to be coming out mid-season. You got a chance to tell Scott Cochran's story.
Hmm.
and his battle with addiction during his time, most recently at Georgia. Of course, he was at Alabama for a long time, and now he's not in college football this year, and that's going to be a conversation that a lot of people, I'm sure, will be talking about. Somebody that's become a household name in SEC circles. What did you take away from that?
So much, and I can't wait for the college game day and college football on ESPN viewing public to see it. Um, I was completely. I've known Scott for a long time. We're generally close, and to see this person share that journey and the depths of that journey and what it ultimately meant for his life, for his personal life, for his professional life, for his own insecurities, for um, what his new drive is and his new goals are. Um, I was moved emotionally, personally, to a tremendous degree, and I just can't wait for you guys to see it. It's scheduled to air during the Georgia Bama week. It's week 5 on College Game Day, and the interviews were extremely vulnerable. They were very emotional, and so Scott's journey through opioid addiction. Um, I've watched a lot of things on Netflix. There are many shows that really show in great detail what that can be. There's a book I read, and I actually suggested this book to Scott after our interview was over. There's a book by a lady named Barbara Kingsolver called Demon Copperhead. If you haven't read it, I highly, highly suggest. You want a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, that's all you need to know. But the reason that it impacted me so deeply was it's set in the region in which I grew up. It's set in the Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, East Kentucky region of Appalachia, which is right in that corridor where opioids really had a dramatic effect, still are. And so, and she did a beautiful job, Miss Kingsolver did, of she lives there, and that's why she nailed the spirit of the region. And then I go and sit down with Scott, Sissy, his wife, um, and learn about how that unfolded. I just don't want to get it's weird when it hasn't aired yet.
Yeah.
You don't want to give too much away, but I appreciate you asking. I will just say this. Those of you who see it, and I hope that's millions of you, and share it will have impacts on people who are living in the darkness, because Scott hid it for a really, really long time. And in a lot of cases, that was including his own family for a long time. So I look forward to y'all seeing it, brother. Thank you for asking about it, because it really matters deeply to me to nail that piece.
Because I'm sure that, that's it's not like you're reaching out to him being like, Scott, I hear you're going through a
No,
really
he's
tough
very
time in your
open
life.
about it.
Yeah.
It is now his purpose. I say all the time, brother, ESPN ain't my purpose. ESPN is a platform for my purpose. And it's a platform for which I have gratitude that I can't even describe. I see that from Scott now. He has 8 national championship rings, bro. 8. 1 at LSU, 5 at Bama, and 2 at Georgia. And I believe, based on what I've seen, that he believes those are now a platform for his purpose, and that's saving lives. And so I will tell you, in the aftermath, when I drove home from Athens after doing the interviews with Scott and his wife, I was emotionally exhausted.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be on the lookout for that. I'm sure that is going to be must see TV. Cannot wait to be able to see that full conversation. Speaking of ESPN, you talk about your purpose, co-workers, I guess, so to speak. Nick Saban's your new coworker, which is
Weird,
gotta
man.
be, it's so like you've probably had like you're one of, and obviously like people that are on the beat, they talk to him all the time. But in terms of national people, like you've talked to Saban about as much as anyone. how weird is it to see him on that side? Because even seeing him on game day and he's admitting, oh yeah, the prediction stuff and all that, I didn't necessarily take into account like how tough that was. And now I'm seeing this new perspective and like even Saban himself is evolving. Like, have you had any interactions with him as a colleague yet?
I have at SEC Media Days, and I'll tell you, just as an aside, I'm in my bar in my basement of my home, and I came down here on Saturday morning, and I had poured myself a cup of coffee upstairs, and I walked downstairs and I turned on my TV, and I'm sitting here on my couch. I opened up the doors. I have these sliding glass doors that open up to Lake Norman out here. Okay, the beautiful air is coming in. The air feels a little crisp,
What a scene.
and college game day comes on, and I'm watching my friends. I want you to know too, all of you guys watching or listening, that Reese and Kirk and Dez and Pat and all those folks, Jess and Jen and everybody involved, Jimmy Galliero, the producer, everybody involved, are great friends. And so I sit down and I turn on the TV and they're on, and Reese is delivering his live from Ireland beautiful soliloquy open with the gorgeous images of the cliffs of Moher and whatever else they're shooting there. And I'm sitting there sipping my coffee going, damn, this is pretty. This is how people get up on Saturday mornings. This is pretty good. And then Coach, they show Coach, and he was so honest in his assessment of, I am now everything that I hated.
Yeah.
I thought it was the coolest thing because, you think about the kind of, I almost said an anatomical term. You think about the guts that it takes, all right, and the self-confidence that it takes to say that on that international television, that I admittedly am now doing these things that for 40 years I hated, more than 40 years, but it's who I am now. And then I loved that he leaned on his analysis. I've not talked to him since college game day, but I have been around him enough to know that mindset very well. I mean, I was somebody that received a lot of eye rolls over the years when I would go down to Tuscaloosa and say, Coach, where do you think your team sizes up in the overall scope of the SEC? And he gives me that we don't have goal sheet. We don't care about, the whole thing. And so when we were at SEC Media Days, I had the neatest conversation with him. Is neatest the dweebiest word ever? Sorry. It
No,
was
it's
like
that place.
It was like the coolest thing. So let me paint another picture for you. I'm sitting in the makeup chair. All right. And Lindsay and Emily, our amazingly talented makeup and hair staff, are fixing me up there. I call them my pit crew. And I decide I'm going to take a video. I put this on my Instagram. And I'm doing a video, and I'm like going to show them doing their thing. And I see in the background Nick Saban walking towards me on my selfie video. And he walks over and he's like, hey, man. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, I turned it off as fast as I could because I didn't want to put him in a bad spot. But guess what he asked me? So
How do you get your makeup done? Was it a
No,
makeup question? Okay.
it was not a makeup question. He'd already had his done. He'd already
Oh,
been
okay.
on Sports Center that morning. So he sat down with me and we had a cup of coffee together. And he was all enthralled with, how do you formulate questions? And man, I want to be able to, because the previous day, Ryan McGee and I had done a 30 or 40-minute interview with Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, and Coach Saban together about the state of collegiate athletics. Because I don't believe there are two more informed authority voices and minds on that than those two. And he didn't know yet, like, if Greg Sankey says something, can I just, oh, I want to talk right now. I want to say this. And that's, of course, what we wanted him to do. But he was not comfortable yet. And I said to him, I said, mark my words right now. Mark, listen to me. Mark my words. I actually got to say, listen to me, to Nick Saban. By the 1st of October, you are going to be so comfortable on the College Game Day set that that's what you're going to do. And I want you to listen. That's what your producers, the viewing audience, and your colleagues want you to do, because you're the smartest mind in the entire world about what's about to come out of your mouth. And he didn't say this to me. Gosh, I wish he had it, because, boy, I'd have walked around with a big old fat head all day long. But my hope is that my 20 years in the business at ESPN might have in some small way empowered him. Maybe. That probably sounds so egotistical. I don't mean
No, it's true. I think it's fair.
It was cool for me that he respected our time together in that setting to just inquire. And damn, it was a cool moment for me. And I haven't had the time to tell him that yet. I did thank him at the time, but like, I've really tried to, again, going inward, tried to process, wow, what an opportunity that the greatest of all time sought a little bit of affirmation in that moment from a guy that, he was busting his chops for the last fit. Because I think I've probably been going to Tuscaloosa very regularly for at least a decade. And so just a cool moment for me, man.
Yeah, outside of Miss Terry, his coaching staff, like how many people has he actually like sought advice? Like even Jimmy Sexton. I mean, he's
Yep.
probably telling
Yep.
Jimmy like, "Hey, this is how things are going to
Well,
go."
I'm sure he's doing that from everybody on the College Game Day. So I saw him doing it with Laura Rutledge,
Yeah,
because he was going to be doing segments with Laura during the day on SEC Network and throughout the college football platforms. And I mean, he would sit with Laura and go through the entire, because he wants to know, he wants to be prepared. He doesn't want to be surprised. Tell me what you know. Tell me what you don't know. Never let me be surprised. Nick Saban edicts right there, buddy. And
truly
so
is.
someday I hope he lets me write his book, Coach.
Be a good one. I'd
He
read
won't.
that.
He'll have somebody who's like a Pulitzer Prize winner do it, but
New York Times
he's the best.
bestseller. Just saying.
Yes, but I don't think that impresses Coach very
Yeah.
much.
Marty, let me get you out of here with this last one. You've been everywhere this week. You're with Kirby on Tuesday or Monday. I mean, you've had conversations with Billy Napier. You were at LSU talking to Brian Kelly. You've been all over the place. What's a takeaway you've had from these conversations going into week one, without necessarily revealing, you're not revealing any sort of, injury news or anything like that, but something that you found interesting that you're going to be thinking about this weekend?
All three of those men specifically really like the teams they're putting on the field. And as you know, this year is vital for Billy. This Saturday is vital for Billy. But he loves Graham Mertz as quarterback. There's been a complete culture shift there. And I'm speaking directly to Gator fans right now. I have several really passionate Florida Gator fans who are like, man, why do you keep telling us this guy's the guy? I believe you're going to see it this year, because they're going to have competitive stamina, talent, unity that they haven't had during the Billy Napier tenure so far. Like, he had to turn an entire culture during NIL, complete roster changeover. And he now has guys that chose Florida and that Florida chose. And so it's interesting, but I had a great conversation with him. McGee and I will flush that out much more on Saturday while we're down in Gainesville. Brian Kelly, of course, Grant Nussmeier now takes over behind center for Jaden Daniels. He knows they now have Blake Baker, who's leading that defense. That is huge, because they couldn't stop a nosebleed in 2023. And if they could have, they might have been a national title contender. They had the best offense in America and a Heisman Trophy winner and two wide receivers, three, that were really good players and will be good players at the next level. offensive lines back. They got Will Campbell, who's going to be a top 2 or 3 pick in the NFL draft coming up. They got dudes. So he's very bullish. And I mean, Kirby, it's funny. Kirby tries to tell me that no, we don't use what happened in the SEC championship game last year as motivation. We don't. We start over anew every year. Bull. They may not want to, but I had a 30-minute sit down interview with Carson Beck, and it was great. Great. And I was asking him about what was the aftermath like of that Alabama loss. And he just detailed the pin drop, desolate quiet of the locker room and the hallway outside the media room right before those guys went in to address the media. And when they detailed that, their jaws were clenched. So don't tell me they don't remember it. And I think Georgia wants a reckoning. That's what I think.
Georgia win it all this year. You on record with that?
I think it's going to be them and Ohio State. And of course, that is, as we sit here right now, injury-free, feeling good and healthy, obviously, all that. It's like, again, going back to Coach Saban, prognostication, I'm not good at it, first of all. I'm terrible at it, but I just really suck at choosing who's going to win what. But yes, I think that Georgia is the team to beat nationally. With that said, I've gone on record with my conference champions. You ready for this?
Fire away.
Georgia, number 1 seed. Ohio State, out of the Big Ten, number 2 seed. A lot of people like Oregon. Clemson, number 3 seed in the ACC. And are you ready, my friends?
Oh, I know what's coming.
The West Virginia Mountaineers out of the Big 12. Most people love Utah. Totally see why. Cam Rising is back. I love the toughness that Kyle Whittingham has instilled in that program. Love him as a person too. But man, Garrett Green behind center. If you don't know that name, you better remember that name. That's a Tallahassee kid. He was the scuttlebutt coming out of the Manning Passing Academy. And so I don't know. We can't just do chalk all the time, right?
That's boring. It is
boring. Let's take a chance or two, man. Go Mountaineers.
Love it. Marty, you're the best. On behalf of GameChange, sounds really cool, like an awesome initiative that you're involved with. I know you got a billion places you got to be, but appreciate you making the time, and we'll do this again real soon.
Always appreciate spending time with you and your spirit, brother. I feel like we're very like-minded people, and I appreciate how you do what you do and the person you are. Have a great day. Thank you,
man. Thank you, man. You too.